Wizard at Large Audiobooks presents 50 Shades of Goblin Green, written by Timothy Majik, narrated by Kelly K. Funk.
Who am I? You sure you want to know? The story of my life is not for the faint of heart. If somebody told you it was a happy tale, if somebody said I was just your average girl, not a care in the world, somebody lied. But let me assure you, this, like any other story worth telling, is all about a man. Fuck. Not even a paragraph in, and I already failed the Bechdel test. Anyways, this story is about a man named Harry Osborne and how he changed my life forever. I guess it all started where a lot of stories begin and end. New York City, high school, a few months away from graduating. We had our cliques like any high school. I can remember Flash being a total jock, and my buddy Pete, just a huge bookworm. Some people move on to become bigger and better people. Others stay stuck in their glory days, only to be remembered in a glass cabinet outside of the PE offices. Harry was always a little different. He didn't have the smarts, wasn't stacked, but there was something about him, something that would make others around him go green with envy. I mean, we all know Harry came from money, but he never threw that in your face. Heck, if it meant that much to him, he would have stayed in those private schools uptown. I think his dad was ashamed more than Harry. Like, it somehow hurt his standing in high society. Whatever. Maybe that's what started it all. Misery loves company, and my old man wasn't winning any Father of the Year awards anytime soon. Once I got my diploma, I walked out of that assembly and kept walking. So long, Queens. Hello, Manhattan. Now, I know I wasn't going to land leading lady overnight. A girl has to pay her dues. But I was making my way. Sure, I had to take some part-time jobs here and there, but I made it work. Oddly enough, I started seeing more of Harry and Pete after high school. Weird how that worked out. I also started having all the worst luck with weirdos in masks. This gross spider-themed creep in a body-tight suit. And I mean body-tight. That pervert left nothing to the imagination. Then there was this psycho in a green BMX getup. Kept trying to get his hands all over me. Dropped me off of buildings and bridges. I didn't want any part of that. I was developing feelings for Harry. But suddenly and unpredictably, old man Osborne bit the dust. Quite violently, too. He was practically split through the middle when Harry found him. Poor Harry. It really did a number on him. I tried to think of things to cheer him up, but he just became completely infatuated with getting his revenge on that Spider-Man. I had to give him some space. Speaking of space, did you know I almost married an astronaut? No, really. I made it all the way down the aisle. But then, I remembered I'd be marrying that J. Jonah Jameson's son, and that guy is even more crazy about that spider dude than Harry. Frankly, I've had enough weird Thanksgiving dinners in my lifetime. So, I booked it out of there, leaving, what's his name again? Buzz at the altar. He was a terrible kisser anyway. Like, who's never Frenched upside down on a couch before? Geez, heaven forbid we ever tried a 69. Not that I would ever do anything like that. Not long after that, Pete tried to put the moves on me. He's sweet enough, and not as awkward after high school, but it just wouldn't work out. Besides, I knew he really had the hots for that Gwendolyn Stacy he went to college with. Psh. You know, she tried to get into modeling one semester. Back off, nerd. This city already has a start, and it's me. I heard she moved to England or something. I don't know. Well, Harry's luck just kept getting worse. He was in a hit and run, and then he came out of his coma with amnesia. Oh man, the days of our lives. After he was released, I knew he would need a familiar face and a kind person to look after him. I started visiting more and more. We had a lot of fun. Breakfast for dinner, music, dancing. I couldn't remember the last time we smiled so much. He seemed to be on the mend. I was hoping, as his brain repaired itself, perhaps we were repairing our friendship too, forming not only new neural pathways, but also a pathway to his heart. I was so hopeful. We even kissed once, just a tease of what was to come. But that was before the incident. It seemed Spider-Man wasn't finished with the Osborn family. He attacked Harry one night, out of nowhere. I still don't know how he survived. Spider-Man's attack left Harry badly burnt on one side of his face. Like an Eggo waffle stuck in a broken toaster, where only one side of the heating coils work and somehow got jammed in there. You know what I mean? I tried to convince Harry to see a doctor, or let me call one to the house. He just kept refusing, saying he didn't need one and he'll be fine in a few hours. A few hours? From third-degree burns on half your face? He retired to his master's suite, and a little bit later, I could have sworn I heard two men talking. Almost sounded like his father, but that would be impossible. I entered the suite and I couldn't believe it. Harry had already removed the bandages, and to my surprise, his face didn't look like burned Eggo anymore. More like rejected Eggo from the factory conveyor belt. Like it would never make it to store shelves. You know what I mean? He turned and faced me. The intensity in his eyes sent chills down my spine and left me breathless. It was in that moment I knew. His bloodlust had returned, pumping and pulsing through his entire body. His muscles and veins were throbbing with anticipation. Part of me wanted to run, but I've never seen Harry like this before. I knew if I left him now, I would never see that happy, charming, and kind man again. I think he could sense it too. The electricity in the air, the pull between us. "Mary Jane," he said, "I have something to show you. Something I've been hiding a long time." He walked over to where Spider-Man almost delivered the killing blow. I remember seeing all the broken glass, and they had hung a curtain to cover the broken mirror frame. But with one strong, determined flick of the wrist, Harry tore down the curtain, not to reveal a mystic beast, but rather a dark staircase leading down, 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 to where? Harry extended his hand to mine. "Do you trust me, Mary Jane?" Harry probed. "How did we get here? Wasn't it just yesterday we were looking at all those weird bugs in his dad's lab during that field trip? What dark secrets has Harry been keeping from the world? From me? What was I about to be exposed to?" I took his hand. His was so firm, so sure. It calmed my nerves a little bit, but then we began climbing down a narrow passageway. It was so long, so curvy. How far did these stairs go? At last we reached the bottom, and as if the room knew Harry's strong presence was there, it clicked alive. Lights flickered on, computers booted up, display cases housing. At first, I wasn't sure. My eyes took some time to adjust. But Harry didn't seem to need any time to adapt at all. His hidden lair was all too familiar to him. I stayed focused on Harry as best I could as he spoke. "I'm showing you this, Mary Jane, because I don't want there to be any secrets between us. For years, I hated my father. But once he was ripped from my life by Spider-Man, the grief was too much. Finding his body, knowing there was so much unsaid, so much we wanted to accomplish, never getting to patch things up or say goodbye." I went to Harry's side. I knew he needed comfort. He continued, "I let my rage drive Oscorp forward, influencing all our research and developing projects, and I think I've finally perfected it. My father's work." I looked up at him, a confident look in his eyes. "Your father's work?" I asked. "Yes, MJ. Before he was ripped from this world, my father had developed an extraordinary formula, enhancing every fiber of the human body. He wanted to share it with the world, unlike that villain Spider-Man," he growled. A formula? Is that what's been the root of this all along? I asked. Yes, MJ. For the past few years, this has been my work, my obsession. But recently, something else has taken my focus, my gaze off of the darkness of my world. You, MJ. You. Once again, I find myself catching my breath. I can't believe he came right out and said it. That I could be the star in his life. Not just the stage, but here, right next to him. Harry, I stammered. Shh, he replied. These last few days have made me beyond happy. And now I'm going to take you places you've never been before. At that moment, he took me in his arms and drew me so close. His rippling muscles, his intense gaze, all so powerful. When his lips finally touched mine, it sent a fire to places long left dormant. It was a kiss like no other, leaving me weak at the knees. I couldn't believe it. It was like he was a completely different man. As if another personality was taking over Harry. Excitement coursed through my entire body. I returned his passion as best I could, but Harry was in full control, and I was not complaining about that. Before I knew what happened, we littered the entire lab with our clothing, outer and underwear on every surface. Harry was focused not only on making love, but on making love over any and all surfaces of the room. My mind was racing. Everything was on the table. He took me on the computer consoles, pinned me up against the display cases of the armor. And much to my surprise, just when I thought he was near completion, he summoned his rocket power glider and rocketed me to the next level of ecstasy. My head was in a fog as the sensation of both flight and orgasmic bliss overtook me. Harry brought me to the height of passion throughout the entire lab before we finally concluded. Somehow, it went by so fast, but felt like ages. But I was so wrapped in bliss, I couldn't believe where the time had gone. As I slowly came to my senses, I realized I was late to attend to my aunt and make sure she was fine after the mess that Spider-Man left over the last few days. I quickly gathered my things and apologized to Harry, letting him know I didn't want to leave, but I had to. He understood. He seemed calm, collected. He knew what he had to do. I told him I would love to take a ride on his glider again anytime. He smiled, so assured. There's that young man I fell for years ago. He pressed a key into my hand, stared into my eyes, and kissed me once more, leaving me wanting more, even with the session we just had. Without a word, he assured me that I would always have a place here with him. I did my best not to blush, but I could feel the heat rising to my face. I took the key and my things. Harry was considerate enough to call me a cab since his driver was off for the night. I told him I'd call him just as soon as I was done tending to my dear aunt. Sadly, that call would never be made. On my ride back to Queens, I was snatched up by some freaks in Midtown. Some sort of living sandcastle and a Spider Bro wannabe. These jerks just kept coming. My driver made it out okay, but that left me in the back seat hanging from some freaky webs over a construction site while the dorks just beat each other up. It was so ridiculous. You probably saw it on the evening news, too. Everyone just throwing punches and being real jerks. That is, until Harry showed up. Oh, Harry, why did you come? For me? For Pete? To save the city? Or to put an end to all of this? Well, I don't have to prolong this. If you saw the headlines, you know the story. Harry fought so bravely, so bold. I still can't believe he's gone. He was my best friend, my confidant, my hero. He took me places I've never been before. Now, I'm moving on. Maybe I'll go out to the West Coast and start something completely new. New York is full of freaks and bad memories anyway. It's time I start making the world work for MJ, just like Harry made the world work for him. So the story doesn't have a happy ending, but it does have a girl who got freed of a city and all the freaks that live in it. So long, New York. I made it there. I know I can make it anywhere.